I am absolutely obsessed with Jordan Peterson.
And then when the Marxists say, well, that wasn't real Marxism, what it really means, and I've thought about this for a long time, it's the most arrogant possible statement anyone could ever make. It means, if I would have been in Stalin's position, I would have ushered in the damn utopia instead of the genocidal massacres, because I understand the doctrine of Marxism and everything about me is good. It's like, well, think again, sunshine. It's like, well, think again, like, well, think again, like, well, think again, well, think again, sunshine.
The most fascinating thing about him is his endless well of motivation. Jordan Peterson is everything you would imagine a Canadian professor to be. He's endlessly polite with a well of patience and professionalism that is frankly astounding, especially in the face of the snobbish, putrid condescension of social justice-minded college acts.
You have lots of reasons to be, God, there's reasons to be resentful about your existence. Everyone you know is going to die. There's this idea that hell is a bottomless pit, and that's because no matter how bad it is, some stupid son of a bitch like you could figure out a way to make it a lot worse.
And you should also support Jordan B. Peterson, because he speaks with such fascinating conviction. He speaks like a man possessed with moral outrage. And why shouldn't he be? Anyone within spitting distance of a university is within the event horizon of the largest metaphorical book burning in human history, with entire doctrines of thought invented for the sole purpose of political machinations. Just take a simple look at this abstract from a so-called scientific article. The concluding section discusses the importance of situatedness of knowledge and the possibility of working towards the abolition of the social category of men. But if you want to really take a walk down the absurdities of the humanities, you have to read Sandra Harding's book, The Science Question in Feminism, where she focuses on the rape and torture metaphors in the writings of Sir Francis Bacon. Why is it not as illuminating and honest to refer to Newton's laws as Newton's rape manual? Frankly, my opinion is that the question should be rephrased, why does feminism have anything to do with science in the first place? And you can read more about this bullshit by looking up the Science Wars, or perhaps watching this video by King Crocoduck. But frankly, what this reminds me of the most is Lysenkoism. Lysenkoism was a pseudoscience of biology created by Trofim Lysenko, which denied natural selection, Mendelian inheritance, and the concept of the gene. It promoted the idea that human nature was constructed and you could therefore deconstruct it. The entire reason why Lysenkoism was promoted by the Soviet Union is because Stalin realized that communism went against human nature, that human beings had different talents that would naturally create a hierarchical society. He decided that instead of changing communism, he was going to change human nature and create the new Soviet man. Lysenko's theories included the idea that plants of a similar type had a kind of proletariat solidarity, and when the Chinese implemented this theory by increasing the density of planting seedlings because these plants apparently wouldn't compete with one another and other such moronic ideas, their crop yields fell and 2 million people died from starvation. But after all, you can't have inequality if everyone's dead. Yaroslav Krzyzewski criticized Lysenkoism in Czechoslovakia. He was dismissed from the Agriculture University in 1949 for serving the established capitalistic system, considering himself superior to the working class and being hostile to the democratic order of the people. Thankfully, we don't have communist-inspired Lysenkoism anymore. We just have gender studies and critical theory. You see, the postmodernists realized that gender equality went against human nature, that men and women had different talents, and that would naturally create a hierarchical society. So they decided that instead of changing their theories on gender, they would redefine gender itself. They decided that gender was just socially constructed, and therefore you could deconstruct it. Oh boy. I wonder where I've heard this argument before.
What do I owe you? Nothing. It's for free. Free!
So instead of gender being based on billions of years of evolution, natural selection, and genetics, instead of gender being sourced in the biology of hormones, which directly dictate our secondary sexual characteristics, instead of gendered behavior coming from the inherently different psychologies and competencies of men and women, the reason why men fill the upper echelons of society isn't because the gender balance of people with IQs over 140 is 20 men to a single woman, and the reason why men fill the prisons isn't because idiot men outnumber idiot women by the same margin. No. Gender is socially constructed, so in order to create their new utopian society, all you have to do is control society's ideas about gender and force people to agree with their worldview. And they will use the power of government to do so. All you need to do to find evidence of this is listen to the pathetic apologetics of some two-bit cross-dressing failed academic.
On the subject of how bigoted attitudes and speech may silence women, people of color, queer people, and other marginalized groups, you seem to have absolutely nothing to say. There's endless catastrophizing from classical liberals on YouTube and elsewhere about how policies prohibiting transphobia in the workplace, including intentional misgendering, are a terrible limitation on the freedom of speech of transphobes. But these same people give no concern whatsoever to the way in which a hostile environment where, for instance, a trans employee's gender identity is constantly disparaged and disregarded might itself have a silencing effect if it doesn't pressure trans people out of the workforce altogether.
Jordan Peterson's speech must be stopped, because Jordan Peterson's speech is problematic. His ideas and his language promote an unsafe environment, and he must be silenced because he might hurt someone's feelings. But when liberal and progressive-minded students brand people as racists and Islamophobes with the direct intention of using institutional power to fire them and make them persona non grata and ruin their lives and stop them from speaking, that's fine. And it's fine because your pathetically small-minded political ideology favors one identity of people over the other. And that's what this is all about. These cretins are using the power of government to force truth and science to bend to their political will. You can very well imagine Jordan Peterson being brought to trial for serving the established cis-normative system, considering himself superior to the transgender class, and being hostile to the rights and privileges of the people. Jordan Peterson is a canary in the coal mine. He is a shot across the bow, a warning to free people across the Western world that this despicable ideology isn't something you should discount. This is bigger than your pathetic little video games and comic books. They are standing on the levers of power, and not only will they write hate speech laws to stop you from disagreeing with them, they have the political will to force you to agree with them, to use government power to invade the privacy of your own mind and your own language. And the only question left is exactly how much violence are they willing to use to usher in their utopia? How many millions of people are you going to fine, to ostracize, to silence, or to put in jail in order to force people to use your pronouns? How big of a gulag do you need in order to reshape human nature? These people believe that they have the right to decide by fiat which ideas and which speech is valuable, because they believe that your ideas and your freedom poses a threat to their utopian ideology. They believe that your freedom and your speech is an action of violence and silencing, so they believe that they have the moral authority to use violence, both individual violence and government violence, to shut you up. And you only need to look at the recent case of Evergreen State College for a crystal clear example of this.
Well, so the students have been, I think the idea is intimidation. So
right.
I've had students followed in the woods.
In the woods?
I've had students visited at home. It's very scary. And I should say, just in terms of putting the context here, as the college was pretending that nothing serious was going on, the police called me up on the Wednesday just after the Tuesday on which I had been challenged in my class and asked me, "Are you on campus?" And I didn't have class. I said, "No, I'm not on campus." They said, "Don't come to campus." I said, "Why?" And they said, "Because the protesters are searching car to car for what they describe as an individual, and we think it's you. And the college has told us to stand down. We can't protect you."
What?
You are watching, in real time, as the Vandals cross the Rubicon and approach the gates of Rome. And Jordan Peterson is warning us all that this is something you should really, really take seriously. Hey, thanks for watching, fam. I know I've become a total sellout, and I totally get it if you don't want to support me. And